Good morning, Year 6. It's great to be with you today to bring you today's reading lesson. But before we get into that, I just want to say a big well done to all of you. It's been fantastic to be seeing all the work that's been coming into us on the Year 6 email address and to see how hard you're working on your lesson videos at home. But it's also been great to be teaching some of you in your bubbles and to spend time with you in school as well, and to see that you are really working hard as well. So a big shout out to all of you. So talking of shout outs, let's have a look who we're going to shout out in this lesson's reading. So first of all, a shout out to James and Charlie for sending in their questions for us to answer from the last chapter of Stormbreaker. Some vocabulary questions for us to think about. Thank you, boys. Well done. I've awarded you 2 dojos each for aspiration. Now let's think about where we're going today in our reading lesson. So your starter task, you can see here there are 5 pictures taken from scenes in the story so far, but they are in the wrong order. So grab yourself a piece of paper and something to write with, and can you write the numbers down so that the scenes are then ordered in chronological order, in the correct order as they happen in the story. And when you've done that, can you write a sentence to summarise each scene, and that will help us to recap what's happened in the story so far. So pause the video now and then we'll come back and check our answers together. So, picture 3 was the first scene. The police inform Alex of the bad news, his uncle has been killed. Then picture 4, Alex attends his uncle's funeral and meets some suspicious characters. Picture 5, Alex chases after the Striker and Son van that was outside his home. Picture 2, Alex checks out the breaker's yard and finds Ian Ryder's BMW. And finally, picture 1, Alex starts his SAS training and is introduced to other recruits who don't seem to like him. Okay, let's have a look at some new exciting words that we're going to come across in the chapter that we're reading today. So we've got strutting, churning and gazed. Strutting means to walk in an arrogant manner. Arrogant meaning somebody that thinks they're better than everybody else. So strutting is a synonym, a word that's similar in meaning to walk, but it's walking in an arrogant manner. Churning, to move or shake vigorously. So to shake something would cause it to churn, but we can also think that our stomach is churning if we're nervous. So the insides of our stomach can feel like everything's shaking inside when we're nervous. And gazed, to look intently with admiration or surprise. So to look really closely at something, either because we're surprised by it or because we think it's rather wonderful and we admire it. So I know you're very good at shouting at the screen, so for each word, can you say it, shout it, whisper it and clap it? Okay, so let's do a word at a time. Strutting, 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 2 syllables. Churning, 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 2 syllables again. Gazed, 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 1 syllable. Well done. Let's move on. So our learning objective today is to retrieve and identify key details from a fiction text. So retrieve being to look really closely in the text and to skim our eyes across the page, looking for the key information and then putting our finger on it when we've identified the place in the text where our answer will be. Now, we're going to have a little bit of a game to start with. I happen to know that the Year 6 children in Mrs. Roberts' bubble are very good at this. So, in this part of the text that we're going to look at first, I'm going to give you a word and I want you to see how quickly you can find that word in the text. So when I've said the word, you'll need to pause the video and find the word, put your finger on it, and then press play, and we'll continue. So, how quickly can you find the word Scotland? Wow, that was quick. What were the clues that you used to help you? Well, Scotland is a proper noun, isn't it? It's the name of a place, so it has a capital letter. So we scan our eyes over the text looking for words beginning with S that are capital letter, and then Scotland jumps out to us. Well done. We'll play that again with the next slide. So before I read this section, I'm going to look at the question that we're going to be considering, and that will help me when I'm looking for the answers. How long did it take for wolf, snake and eagle and fox to complete the hike? Let's read the text. The sergeant looked at his watch. 11 hours, 5 minutes. That's not bad, cub, but the others were here 3 hours ago. Bully for them, Alex thought. He didn't say anything. Anyway, you should just make it to the first RV, the sergeant went on. It's up there. He pointed to a wall, not a sloping wall, a sheer one, solid rock rising 200 or 300 feet up without a handhold or a foothold in sight. Even looking at it, Alex felt his stomach shrink. Ian Ryder had taken him climbing, in Scotland, in France, all over Europe, but he had never attempted anything as difficult as this. Not on his own, not when he was so tired. So I'm going to come back to the question. How long did it take for wolf, snake, eagle and fox to complete the hike? Well, the clue in the question is that it's something to do with time, because it says how long. And as I scan back up here, I can see the answer, 11 hours and 5 minutes. So that's how long it took them to complete the hike. Let's move on. Okay, let's do another word game first. So the word that I'm going to give you to find this time is pointed. Well done. If you scanned your eyes over the text looking for words beginning with P and OI sound in the middle, so the OI, it's not a proper noun, so it would be a small p. There's pointed. Okay, let's look at this question. List 3 reasons why Alex did not want to go up the wall. So I've identified here those reasons. He had never attempted anything as difficult as this, not on his own, not when he was tired. So now that I've found that bit in the text, I can answer the question. Alex did not want to go up the wall because he had never done anything as difficult as this, he had never climbed on his own, and he was tired. Okay, let's read this bit together. I can see the answers already there, so let's see how we would find that answer together. I can't, he said. In the end, the 2 words came out easily. I didn't hear that, the sergeant said. I said I can't do it, sir. Can't isn't a word we use around here. I don't care, I've had enough, I've just had... Alex's voice cracked. He didn't trust himself to go on. He stood there, cold and empty, waiting for the axe to fall. But it didn't. The sergeant gazed at him for a long minute. He nodded his head slowly. Listen to me, cub, he said. I know what happened in the killing house. Alex glanced up. Wolf forgot about the closed-circuit TV. We've got it all on film. So what conclusion can you draw from this? Well, conclusion means how do we summarise what the main point is here about how Alex was feeling? What conclusion can we draw from what he was saying and how he was behaving? And we go back up to the top, the first line. I can't, he said. In the end, the 2 words came out easily. So for Alex, it was easier to say he can't than he thought it would be. He didn't think it would be very easy to say to the sergeant that he couldn't do something. But actually, because of how he was feeling, it actually was easier to say than he had thought. So, here's some chilly questions. Let's have a look at the question first. Did Alex consider complaining about Wolf? How do you know? Now let's read the text together. Then why... Alex began. Did you make a complaint against him, Cub? No, sir. Do you want to make a complaint against him, Cub? A pause. Then, no, sir. So did Alex consider complaining about Wolf? How do you know? Pause the video while you have a go at this question. Okay, let's look at the answer together. Yes, Alex did consider complaining about Wolf, and we know this because he paused here. This line here shows us that he paused, he stopped, began his sentence and then didn't finish it. He paused. And then the ellipsis down here shows us also that he was thinking about it. A pause then, and then he answered, no, sir. Okay, well done if you got that. Let's move on to the next question. List 2 ways the sergeant tried to help Alex. Let's read the text together. Good. The sergeant pointed at the rock face, suggesting a path up with his finger. It's not as difficult as it looks, he said, and they're waiting for you just over the top. You've got a nice cold dinner, survival rations. You don't want to miss that. Alex drew a deep breath and started forward. As he passed the sergeant, he stumbled and put out a hand to steady himself, brushing against him. Sorry, sir, he said. It took him 20 minutes to reach the top, and sure enough, K-Unit was already there, crouching around 3 small tents that they must have pitched earlier in the afternoon. 2 just large enough for sharing. 1, the smallest, for Alex. So, can you pause the video and list 2 ways that the sergeant tried to help Alex? Right, let's take a look at the answers. Firstly, he pointed for a way for Alex to go. Secondly, he tried to entice him with a dinner waiting for him. So entice him means encourage him by telling him about something that would be there when he got to the top. So well done if you got those answers. Let's move on to Chili 2. What conclusions can we draw about Snake from these lines? How do you know? Let's read the text. Snake, a thin, fair-haired man who spoke with a Scottish accent, looked up at Alex. He had a tin of cold stew in one hand, a teaspoon in the other. I didn't think you'd make it, he said. Alex couldn't help but notice a certain warmth in the man's voice, and for the first time he hadn't called him 00 Nor did I, Alex said. So what conclusions can we draw about Snake from these lines? How do you know? Pause the video. Welcome back. Let's share the answers. So Snake was actually being kinder to Alex now. He was speaking in a nicer tone and not calling him 00. Well done if you got that. Let's have a look at a Chili 3 question. Oh, we have another Chili 2 question first. Why was it hard to light the fire? Let's look at the text. Wolf was squatting over what he hoped would become a campfire, trying to get it started with 2 flint stones while Fox and Eagle watched. He was getting nowhere. The stones only produced the smallest of sparks, and the scraps of newspaper and leaves that he had collected were already far too wet. Wolf struck at the stones again and again. The others watched, their faces glum. Alex held out the box of matches that he had pickpocketed from the sergeant when he had pretended to stumble at the foot of the rock face. These might help, he said. He threw the matches down, then went into his tent. So why was it hard to light the fire? Pause the video while you have a look at the text. Let's have a look at the answers together then. So it was hard to light the fire because the leaves and newspapers were too wet. And we can have a look up here. If we see here, the scraps of newspaper and the leaves that he had collected were already far too wet. Well done if you got that. Now a Chili 3 question. What conclusion can we draw from that line, the line that's highlighted? What was Mr. Blunt really thinking? So the line that's highlighted is remarkably well, in fact. And this is taken from a new chapter, the next chapter called Toys Aren't Us. So let's have a look together and read this part of the text. In the London office, Mrs. Jones sat waiting while Alan Blunt read the report. The sun was shining. A pigeon was strutting back and forth along the ledge outside as if it was keeping guard. "He's doing very well," Blunt said at last. "Remarkably well, in fact." He turned a page. "I see he missed a target practice." "Were you planning to give him a gun?" Mrs. Jones asked. "No, I don't think that would be a good idea." "Then why does he need target practice?" Blunt raised an eyebrow. "We can't give a teenager a gun," he said. "On the other hand, I don't think we can send him to Port Talon empty-handed. You'd better have a word with Smithers." So what conclusion can we draw from the line that says, remarkably well, in fact? What was Mr. Blunt really thinking? Read around that sentence, see what else it says in that section of the text to answer your question. Okay, let's discuss the answers together. So, remarkably suggests that Mr. Blunt was surprised that Alex was doing so well. He didn't think that he was going to succeed at the tasks, but remarkably well, in fact, suggests that Mr. Blunt was very surprised that Alex was doing so well. Okay, here's one more Chilly One question for you. Can you name 3 spy skills that Alex possesses? Let's read the text. "I already have. He's working on it now." Mrs. Jones stood up as if to leave, but at the door she hesitated. "I wonder if it's occurred to you that Ryder may have been preparing him for this all along," she said. "What do you mean?" "Preparing Alex to replace him. Ever since the boy was old enough to walk, he's been trained for intelligence work, but without knowing it. I mean, he's lived abroad, so he now speaks French, German and Spanish. He's been mountain climbing, diving and skiing. He's learnt karate. Physically, he's in perfect shape." She shrugged. "I think Ryder wanted Alex to become a spy." "But not so soon," Blunt said. "I agree. You know as well as I do, Alan, he's not ready yet. If we send him into Sale Enterprises, he's going to get himself killed." "Perhaps." The single word was cold, matter of fact. "He's 14 years old. We can't do it." So, name 3 spy skills that Alex possesses. Pause the video. Well done. He speaks 4 languages, he's physically fit, and he's been trained as a martial artist. He's trained in martial arts. Well done if you got those answers. So, we'd love to see how you got on with these chilies. So, as always, please email your answers into us at the Year 6 French Primary email address. You can see it on the screen here. To finish off, one more little task for us to look at together. So, looking at vocabulary, how does the detail following the speech reveal not only how it should be spoken, but something about the character? So you can see in red the parts of the sentence that tell us how the speech has been spoken. Now, if I read the sentence, if I read the speech without paying attention to that, then I'm not learning about how the character is behaving. Let me give you an example. This top one. "Tough luck, Double or Nothing," Wolf said softly, almost in a kind way. The way I said it wasn't softly, was it? And it wasn't in a kind way. So I have to, before I start reading, glance ahead to help me to know how to read the text. And I can see that I've got to say it in a soft, kind way. Let me do it again. "Tough luck, Double or Nothing," Wolf said softly, almost in a kind way. Look at the next one. It tells us that he's talking in a sneering tone of voice. So sneering meaning not being very kind, being quite sarcastic, putting somebody down. So I need to use that tone of voice when I read this. Don't wet the bed, he said, in a sneering tone of voice. Down here, I can see the sergeant demanded. So the way that he's speaking, demanded is a synonym for said, isn't it? But it's showing that he's demanding something. He's being quite forceful in the way he speaks. Do you want to tell me what happened in there, cub? The sergeant demanded. And finally, I can see in this bit Alex's voice cracked. So there's some emotion in there, isn't there? It tells us that he's feeling quite emotional. I don't care. I've had enough. I've just had... Alex's voice cracked. Well done. Perhaps if you're reading a book of your own at home, you can have a look for some of these things. If there are characters speaking, perhaps you can scan ahead of the spoken word to help you to know how to read it. Even if you're reading silently in your head, you can still read with that intonation that helps you to understand a little bit more about the character. So we will look forward to seeing your work sent in to us, and stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.